In 1979, inside a naval correctional facility in Seattle, a researcher named Alexander Schoss convinced prison officials to try something that sounded almost absurd, painting a holding cell bright pink, and measuring what happened to the inmates locked inside it. Within minutes of entering the cell, according to Schoss's reports, even visibly agitated, physically aggressive detainees began to calm. Their muscle strength, tested immediately after exposure, measured weaker than before they entered the room. Some grew docile enough that guards described the change as almost unsettling to witness. The shade was quickly nicknamed Baker-Miller Pink, after the two officers who ran the facility, and for a brief, strange period in the late 1970s and early 1980s, it was installed in prisons, drunk tanks, and locker rooms across the United States. Not for decoration, but as a tool of behavioral control. A color usually associated with softness and sweetness was, for a moment, treated by the American correctional system as something closer to a chemical sedative. The excitement didn't last. Later, more rigorous attempts to replicate Schoss's original findings produced mixed and often contradictory results. Some studies found a temporary calming effect, others found none at all, and some suggested any effect faded within minutes of extended exposure. By the 1990s, most correctional facilities had quietly abandoned Baker-Miller Pink as a serious behavioral tool, and today researchers generally treat the original findings with considerable caution rather than as settled science. But the story didn't disappear, because it revealed something psychologically important regardless of whether the specific, pink prison cell, effect held up under later scrutiny. It revealed that an entire government correctional system, for a real period of time, believed a color alone could physically weaken a human body's aggression and strength. And that belief alone was powerful enough to get bright pink painted onto the walls of maximum security holding cells across an entire country. Which raises the real question this episode is built around: why would anyone, in the first place, expect a color associated with softness and femininity to have any power at all over aggression, strength, or control? The answer requires going back much further than 1979, and it requires confronting a surprising historical fact: pink wasn't always considered a soft or feminine color at all. Here is where the story turns from institutional history into human perception. Pink, physiologically, is simply a lighter, less saturated version of red, produced when red light is mixed with white. And because of this close relationship, color psychologists have proposed that pink may inherit some of red's documented physiological associations with arousal and intensity, but in a significantly muted, defanged form. Some researchers studying the original Baker-Miller findings hypothesized that this diluted version of red's intensity might explain the reported calming effect, the theory being that the eye and nervous system register something visually related to red's urgency, but without red's full alarm signal, potentially producing a brief window of physiological confusion or de-escalation before the effect wears off. This remains a contested hypothesis, not an established mechanism, and later research has not conclusively confirmed it. What is much better established is something else entirely: that pink's modern cultural meaning, soft, feminine, gentle, is a surprisingly recent invention, and for most of Western history, the color carried almost the opposite set of associations. Here is the idea that reframes everything that follows. Pink has no fixed gender, softness, or emotional identity built into it whatsoever. Nearly everything we associate with pink today, femininity, sweetness, weakness, romance, was manufactured within the last 200 years, largely through marketing decisions, and in some cases within living memory of people still alive today. Once you understand pink as one of the most recently engineered color meanings in this entire series, its strange, contradictory history becomes impossible to look away from. 18th century European aristocracy. Far from being feminine, pale pink was worn extensively by aristocratic men across France and England throughout the 1700s, often in elaborate silk suits, waistcoats, and powdered wigs. Historians of fashion note that pink at the time was simply considered a fashionable, high-status shade of red, a color of nobility and wealth, worn confidently by men like any other luxurious hue, with no particular gendered association attached to it. 19th-century Western infant fashion. For much of the 1800s and into the early 1900s, American and European trade publications frequently advised that pink was the more appropriate color for baby boys, described in some period sources as the stronger and more decided color, closely related to red, while pale blue, associated at the time with the softness of the Virgin Mary in religious art, was recommended for girls. This is the near exact reverse of today's convention, and historians of childhood have documented this thoroughly through period catalogs and advice columns. Early to mid-20th century, United States. The convention we now consider natural, pink for girls, blue for boys, did not firmly solidify in American consumer culture until roughly the 1940s, driven heavily by manufacturers and retailers standardizing marketing categories to sell more clearly gender-segmented children's clothing and nursery products. What felt, by the late 20th century, like an ancient and biological truth was, historically speaking, a relatively recent retail decision. Mid-20th century American consumer culture. Following World War II, a booming consumer economy embraced pink enthusiastically. First Lady Mamie Eisenhower's fondness for the color in the 1950s helped popularize what became known as Mamie Pink in American home decor, appliances, and fashion, cementing pink's associations with domestic femininity, comfort, and post-war prosperity. 1980s and 1990s corporate and cultural marketing. As the Pink Equals Girls convention solidified across toy aisles, greeting cards, and children's marketing worldwide, retail researchers have since documented what's sometimes called the pink tax and heavily gender-segmented product design, with pink used deliberately across countless products, from razors to notebooks, specifically to market otherwise identical items separately to female consumers, often at a measurably higher price point. Late 20th and early 21st century reclamation movements. Beginning in the 1990s and accelerating through recent decades, pink has been deliberately reclaimed in various cultural and political contexts. From breast cancer awareness campaigns adopting pink ribbons in the early 1990s, to punk and alternative fashion subcultures using hot pink specifically to signal rebellion rather than softness, demonstrating that even pink's most recent, feminine, meaning is itself contested and actively being rewritten in real time. Every one of these examples reveals the same underlying pattern. Pink's meaning has never been stable for more than a few generations at a time, repeatedly rewritten by whichever institution, aristocracy, retail marketing, wartime consumer culture, or activist movements, most needed the color to mean something specific in that moment. Here is the thread tying the entire episode together. Pink is the fastest evolving color meaning in modern history, clear proof that color psychology is never purely biological. It is constantly rewritten by commerce, politics, and culture, often within a single human lifetime, and the version of natural you inherited is almost certainly younger than you think. Every story we've explored circles back to the same conclusion: pink was never soft by nature. It was made soft, deliberately, by people who profited from that softness being widely believed. Here is where the story takes its most surprising turn. Cross-cultural color research has found that the pink equals feminine, blue equals masculine convention, so deeply assumed as universal in much of the Western world today, is far from globally consistent. In several cultures and historical periods studied by anthropologists and color researchers, gendered color associations either don't exist in the same form, or are reversed entirely, reinforcing that what feels like an unshakable biological truth to many Western viewers is, in large part, a culturally and commercially constructed convention rather than a human universal. This connects directly back to the Baker Miller prison story that opened this episode. If pink's calming prison effect was genuinely just a temporary neurological quirk of a desaturated red, but pink's feminine, gentle, cultural meaning was a 20th century marketing invention layered on top, then the entire Baker Miller experiment may have accidentally captured two completely different phenomena at once, one biological and modestly supported, one cultural and entirely manufactured, and mistaken them, for a few strange years, as a single unified effect. Untangling exactly where biology ends and marketing begins with pink remains, to this day, a genuinely unresolved question in color psychology research. This same tangled duality, part biology, mostly marketing, is everywhere in the world around you today. In retail and product design, pink remains one of the most deliberately gender-coded colors in consumer marketing, still used to segment nearly identical products into separately priced his and hers categories, a practice increasingly scrutinized by consumer advocacy groups studying the so-called pink tax. In branding, millennial pink, a dusty, muted shade that became inescapable across startups, cafes, and Instagram aesthetics in the mid-2010s, was deliberately positioned by designers as gender-neutral and sophisticated, a conscious rebellion against pink's more overtly feminine, saturated predecessors, proving once again that pink's meaning can be re-engineered within a single decade when a new market wants something different from it. In activism, the pink ribbon remains one of the most recognizable symbols in modern public health awareness campaigns, demonstrating pink's capacity to carry serious, even solemn meaning entirely disconnected from its soft and frivolous reputation. In interior design and architecture, pale pink has recently resurfaced in commercial spaces and boutique hotels specifically because designers believe it reads as calming and welcoming. A modern, softened echo of the very same Baker-Miller hypothesis tested in that Seattle holding cell nearly 50 years ago, minus the prison bars. In digital spaces, certain apps and platforms use pink and rose gold tones specifically to signal warmth, approachability, and emotional safety, a deliberate design choice pulling from decades of accumulated cultural association, regardless of how recently that association was actually built. So what does the research actually establish, carefully separated from speculation? Well-supported findings include, the historical reversal of pink and blue gender conventions in Western fashion between the 19th and mid-20th centuries is thoroughly documented through period trade publications, advice columns, and retail history, leaving little room for dispute. Cross-cultural anthropological research has also well established that gendered color coding is not a human universal, varying significantly across different societies and time periods. Considerably more contested is the original Baker-Miller pink calming effect. While Shaw's initial 1979 findings generated significant attention, subsequent studies attempting to replicate the aggression-reducing or strength-reducing effects of pink environments have produced inconsistent results, and the scientific consensus today treats the effect as, at best, small, inconsistent, and possibly limited to brief exposure windows. A useful cautionary example of how a single, dramatic early study can shape public belief long after later research complicates the picture. What's clear is this: pink sits at an unusually revealing intersection in color psychology, a color where legitimate, if modest, physiological findings have become deeply entangled with one of the most successful, culturally manufactured color meanings of the last century, and separating the two remains an active, unresolved challenge for researchers. Think about your own relationship with pink, and how much of it you actually chose. The nursery, blanket, or clothing color assigned to you or someone you love before either of you had any say in the matter. The subtle hesitation some adults still feel wearing a pink shirt, an inherited discomfort barely a century old, dressed up as timeless instinct. The slightly higher price tag on a pink version of a product that is, materially, identical to its blue or black counterpart sitting right next to it on the shelf. The calming, welcoming feeling a soft pink room or app interface gives you, without you ever consciously deciding that feeling should exist. None of these reactions are ancient. Most of them are younger than your own grandparents. And yet they can feel, in the moment, as fixed and natural as gravity. Pink was never soft by nature. It was made soft, deliberately, recently, and profitably. It has been the color of 18th century aristocratic men, the stronger, recommended shade for baby boys in Victorian America, a tool tested on prison inmates in 1979, a multi-billion-dollar marketing convention by the 1980s, and a deliberately elevated, gender-neutral aesthetic just a few years after that. No color in this entire series has changed its assigned meaning as fast, or as recently, as pink. Which means pink may be the single clearest proof in this entire series of the idea running underneath every episode: colors don't contain fixed truths. Human beings do, and we keep pouring new truths into the same shades, generation after generation, then forgetting, almost immediately, that we were the ones who put them there. The next time pink feels obviously, naturally, soft, or feminine to you, remember, your own great-great-grandparents, dressing a baby boy in pink because it was considered the strong, decisive color, would have found that assumption just as strange as you might find theirs. But if pink proves that color meaning can be rewritten within a single century, there is one more color in this story that has done something even stranger. A color so tied to wealth and status that entire empires debased their own currencies chasing it, and modern neuroscience has found it activates reward circuitry in the brain strikingly similar to the circuitry triggered by addictive substances. A color that has driven explorers to cross oceans, funded wars, and, according to some psychologists, may still be quietly shaping how trustworthy you judge a stranger to be within a fraction of a second of meeting them. Next time, on Language of Colors, we uncover the secret history of gold.